The unthinkable has just happened. Ukraine has struck deep inside Russia, and Moscow is on high alert. Explosions, panic, and chaos have shaken the heart of Russian territory. What does this mean for the future of this war? Let's break it all down. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel Global Times USA. Please subscribe and like my videos. Today, we're diving deep into a dramatic and intense topic. Massive attack. Ukraine strikes deep inside Russia. Moscow on alert. This is not a car review, but rather a full breakdown of a bold military operation, examining its outward picture, interior logic, performance on the battlefield, safety or risk aspects, unique strategic selling points, cost or price, in human and material terms, and concluding thoughts. Let's get into it. When we look at the exterior side of this event, what stands out immediately is the boldness and audacity of the strike. Ukraine has managed to push beyond its borders and target deeply into Russian territory, something that sends shockwaves through both military and political circles. Across multiple reports, we see that Ukrainian forces have struck oil terminals, ammunition plants, and weapons depots inside Russia itself. The visible signs are explosions, fires, smoke plumes, disrupted infrastructure, and emergency responses in Russian border regions, and in some cases near Moscow. On the Russian side, Moscow is reportedly on high alert. Air defenses scrambled, civilian infrastructure put under protection, and officials issuing warnings about escalation. The psychological impact of something striking deep in what was once considered safe territory is huge. Civilians, too, become aware that no zone is entirely beyond reach. From a diplomatic or communications lens, the exterior of this operation is a message. Ukraine is signaling capability, resolve, and willingness to take the war to the Russian side, not just defend. That elevates the stakes. Now shifting to interior logic. Why this operation, how it was conceived, what internal capabilities and planning made it feasible. Inside the strategic brain of Ukraine's military and intelligence services lies an evolving doctrine of deep strikes and asymmetric warfare. Over time, Ukraine has built up drone fleets, precision munitions, stealth infiltration methods, and intelligence-gathering pipelines that penetrate Russian defenses. The planning must have involved identifying weak points, critical military or industrial sites in Russia that, if targeted, would yield outsized disruption. The operation known as Operation Spiderweb is one prime example. Ukraine struck multiple Russian air bases in different regions with coordinated drone attacks, reportedly hitting up to 40 aircraft. That demonstrates not just reach, but multi-axis planning. Inside logistics and staging, Ukraine needed to conceal drones, move them across territory, manage command and control links, ensure electronic warfare suppression or evasion, and coordinate timing so attacks occur nearly simultaneously. Intelligence would have needed real-time tracking of Russian air defenses, radar coverage gaps, and maybe even insider data. The consequences of failure are high, so redundancy and risk mitigation likely played large roles. Internally, morale and domestic support would be vital. When a country undertakes an operation like this, it needs soldiers, engineers, analysts, and command structures all aligned. The internal narrative also matters. Ukraine can present this as a legitimate act of defense and deterrence rather than aggression. That shapes both internal morale and external diplomacy. Now performance. How well did this strategy execute? What were results? What were limitations? Based on emerging reports, the performance is impressive in several dimensions. Ukrainian forces reportedly struck multiple high-value targets deep in Russia, including those air bases and explosive manufacturing facilities. Russian sources confirm some level of damage and disruption, though sometimes minimizing the scale. The lightning precision and reach of the drones suggest the performance was not just symbolic, but operationally significant, potentially degrading Russia's long-range strike capacity. That said, performance is not perfect. Some targets may have been only partially damaged. Russian air defenses reportedly shot down many drones or intercepted some attacks. The ability to sustain such deep strikes over time is also constrained by logistics, cost, attrition, intelligence risk, and the need to avoid escalating into full-scale retaliation. Operational secrecy may leak, and Russian countermeasures might adapt. So while the performance is commendable and perhaps game-changing in some respects, it's not a silver bullet. Turning to safety and risk features, or conversely, the dangers and vulnerabilities of such an operation, from Ukraine's perspective, the main safety concerns are loss of assets, drones shot down, exposure of intelligence sources, reprisals on Ukrainian territory, escalation that draws in more powerful adversaries, and international law or diplomatic blowback. Each drone lost is not only material cost, but an intelligence leak. Operating deep inside Russian airspace involves crossing multiple layers of defense. From the Russian side, safety measures include strengthening air defenses, electronic warfare, interceptor systems, radar coverage expansion, early warning networks, and hardening of critical infrastructure. Moscow has also reportedly placed regions on high alert, dispersed important assets, and evacuated or shielded vital hubs. The more Russia anticipates such incursions, the harder it becomes to execute them. But no defense is perfect. The fact that Ukraine penetrated deep shows there were gaps. Also, civilian risk is high. Any strike in or near populated zones risks collateral damage, disruption of civilian life, or unintended escalation. That's a political risk as much as military. Now, what are the unique selling points, the standout aspects that make this operation distinct? First, deep reach, striking not just border zones but interior Russian territory, including near Moscow, changes the narrative and power dynamics. That's a psychological force multiplier. Second, precision and selectivity, targeting military, industrial facilities, air bases, ammo depots rather than indiscriminate bombardment, gives strategic credibility and avoids total escalation. That selectivity helps avoid alienating external supporters. Third, asymmetric cost-effectiveness, using relatively inexpensive drones to degrade high-value Russian assets yields high leverage. If one drone costs thousands and destroys a bomber worth millions, that's a favorable ratio. Fourth, message and deterrence. It signals to Russia and the world that Ukraine is no longer purely defensive. It can and will project force. That potential to deter future strikes gives it strategic weight. Fifth, diplomatic signaling. Such operations project strength in international negotiations, potentially influencing peace talks, alliances, or aid. Now, price. This is not a consumer product, so price means human, material, diplomatic, and reputational costs. Materially, drones, munitions, fuel, logistics, intelligence infrastructure, maintenance, and losses represent a significant financial burden. Each drone lost, each support team lost or exposed, adds to the tally. Human cost includes potential deaths, capture of operators, or injuries. Any escalation could lead to more casualties on both sides. Also, civilian casualties or collateral damage can cost political capital and international support. On diplomacy, there is a cost of perception. Russia will condemn it, likely intensify retaliatory strikes, possibly call for more international intervention. Ukraine may attract criticism or accusations of escalation or cross-border aggression, which could strain relationships with neutral or cautious states. Another non-monetary cost is escalation. Russia might intensify missile or drone attacks on Ukrainian cities or infrastructure as retaliation, broadening the war. The price could ripple across fronts. Finally, let me offer a conclusion, summarizing and offering perspective on the significance of this bold move. Overall massive attack. Ukraine strikes deep inside Russia. Moscow on alert. Represents a turning point in the conflict's narrative. It isn't just about territory, it's about reach, message, deterrence, and the rebalancing of psychological and strategic initiative. The exterior displays power and audacity, the interior logic reveals planning maturity and growing capability. The performance shows Ukraine is rising to operational breakthroughs despite resource constraints. Safety considerations remain dangerous but not prohibitive. Unique selling points lie in precision, depth, and signal, and the price is heavy yet perhaps justified in strategic calculus. In sum, this operation raises the stakes. It forces Russia to respond, adapt, and fortify, while Ukraine butteries between daring and sustainability. If Ukraine can sustain this kind of strike capability and manage retaliation risk, it could reshape strategic posture. But if overstretched, losses or retaliation could undercut gains. Thank you all for watching this in-depth review. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Global Times USA if you enjoyed this analysis. Stay tuned for updates as the situation evolves.